Hi everyone, I'm Kathleen from Zen Art. Here I am again, subbing for Theodora. Hello Vivian! How are you over there? Okay, I hope you'll join and paint with me. But if you just want to watch, that's okay too. Anyway, the video will be saved and shared later, so you can take your time and paint on your own time. Okay, so I'll wait a bit and see if others will join before I start. Meanwhile, you can ask me anything. Today we'll be painting reflection on water. So it's World Watercolor Month this July, and this is the 1st of July, so we're starting with the prompt reflection today. Oh, it's hot. Here too, it's hot. I'm in the Philippines, but the weather is quite erratic. Sometimes it suddenly just rains, but it's pretty hot too. Summertime. Okay, so we'll be sharing in the group soon the prompts for every day. So there will be a word for each day, and it's up to you how you want to interpret it and how you what idea comes to mind that you'd like to paint. But please join us and share your artworks. We love seeing your artworks. And I'm not sure what tomorrow is, but today is reflection, and I chose two yogis beside a body of water, so the reflections are reflected on water. So you can find it here in the event. I share the photo, so if you want to paint along with me, just save the photo and you can do it. Okay, so this is the photo I'll show you. Okay. So it's a pretty easy reflection because, well, it's mostly the silhouette, so it's pretty dark. So this is a good starter to practicing reflections on water. And then you can work your way to more complicated reflections later on. But start easy so that you'll enjoy the process. Okay, so I think we can start. Okay, so I'll flip my camera down, and then don't be confused if it flips back and forth because I'm just changing the view. Okay, so there you go. Okay, now I'm gonna flip it so it faces you right. There you go. Okay, so now I'm just gonna put this reference here on the side so I can see it while I paint. So for this, I listed the materials, but let's do a recap. So we need watercolor paper. So I used a pretty thick one so that I don't have to stretch it. But if you have a thinner paper, then you better stretch it out so that it doesn't curl when you wet it later on. So I already pre-sketched it. As you can see, at the top here is the actual two people, and then here below are the reflections. Okay, so just a basic line sketch, and then for the plants later, for the weeds, I'm just gonna do that instinctively. Okay, no need to stress about the details. Okay, just enjoy the process. So we need paper, and then of course I have a mixing plate here ready. And then I'm gonna use, let's see, maybe I'll use the Sereno today. Okay, so we have these palettes from Zen Art. There's another one, the metallics. I won't be using it today, of course. So Sereno has the darker shades. Okay, so since the painting is made up of really blues and grays and black, I'm gonna use Sereno. Okay. But for brighter colors, we have the Allegro palette. As you can see, bright, lots of yellows and reds, lots of warm, bright colors for best for floral paintings or maybe sunsets. Yeah. Okay, so for now, let's use the Sereno. And we also have this, by the way, which I really love. It's compact, small. It comes in this really nice tin. And it has 12 colors. All the colors you need, really, you can mix them and just create all the other colors you need. It's good for bringing along with you if you like to go plein air painting. Okay, very compact. All right, so let's go. I think I'm actually gonna use this. Let's try this. Let's try to work with just this palette. Okay, this Presto. And then I also have brushes. Okay, so I just have this ready. This is from the Turner collection of Zen Art. It has 13 brushes and one palette knife. So I'm gonna use this big round brush and then a smaller one. Okay, and then later on, I'm also gonna be using brushes from the Fine Line collection. Okay, so this is Zen Art's Fine Line. It comes in this bag. So I'm gonna use some of the fine brushes for the weeds later. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna see which one works best later. I'm gonna get several. Okay, so this is great for, you can use this, I use this both for watercolor, for even acrylic. It's really great for those tiny details. Okay, and then of course I always have this scratch paper because I like to try out my mixtures first before I put it on paper so that there are less regrets later. Okay, sometimes what you mix on the palette doesn't really come out the same as how you thought it would on paper, so best to swatch it out if you're not sure. Okay, and of course your paper towel for absorbing excess water. Okay, and then if you haven't yet, of course you need your pencil and your kneaded eraser to sketch. And before I forget, of course, water. Okay, so it's a bit dark. Let me turn on an extra light. Okay. Right, so that's much better. Okay, so with watercolor, you always start with the lightest colors, the lightest mixes first, and then you work your way upwards. Okay, you can do wet and wet, you can do wet and dry. I'm really a fan of, I find myself using wet and dry mostly, but do what makes you happy. Okay, so I'm gonna zoom in so you can see it better. Let's see. Okay, that's too much. Okay, so I think this is good. All right. So ready your materials, and if you are, okay, then we're ready to start. Okay, so just checking from the reference photo. Okay, so what I see is the lightest would be the blue sky, really, but it's not just one blue. Okay, there are several blues, so I'll start with the lightest. Okay, so using this palette, okay, here are the color swatches. All right, so I think aqua blue and then cobalt. Let me see if I mix them both, if I get the nice blue sky. So it's good to practice with a limited palette because then you get to practice your color mixing. And even though you just have 6 or 8 colors, you can create all the colors that you'll ever need. Okay, so it's great when you're traveling, so you don't have to bring all your colors. You just need your essential colors. So this is what espresso is. It has all the essential colors. Okay, so let's now try to create the mix. Okay, I'll do it here in a clean one because this is pretty light. I don't want to ruin it with weird mixes. Okay, so when you're going to be using it a lot, it's good to prepare ahead. Okay, so I'm gonna use this to get some water from the jar and squirt a lot to my palette, just to prepare enough mixture so that I don't run out in the middle. Okay, so let's do that. Let's mix this blue, and then I'm gonna add some aqua blue just to tone down the blueness. Okay, so you don't have to get the color exactly as your reference. After all, it's your painting, so just interpret it the way you want it. Okay, so it's pretty light. I want it a bit darker, so I'm gonna add some more. Okay, so the swatch is really very helpful. Sometimes, well, most times, it really helps me, especially when I'm painting botanicals, to get the color right. Okay, let's see how this looks like. I hope this is better. Okay, so that's darker. Okay, I like it. So now I'm gonna apply it all over, okay? Because I'm not gonna worry about this because this is gonna be one dark color later on. I'm just gonna paint on top. Okay, so I'm gonna paint it all over. So if you have observed, I drew the weeds part, just the basic shape, and then the lines will follow later. Okay, so now I'm gonna cover the whole. So if you prefer to do the wet and wet, then you wet your paper first. Okay, and then you add your mixture. Okay, so don't stress out. Again, this is a pretty simple photo to do. You can always add water if you want to create the effect, the soft effect. Okay, so if you feel like the lines are too hard, you don't like the brush strokes, just add water while it's still wet, and you can still work it. Okay, so this is also the good thing about using thicker paper, because it can handle more of you working on it while it's still wet. Okay, some papers they absorb the pigment really quickly, and sometimes some pigments are also very staining, so that's why it's good to try out your paints to see which of those pigments are staining, and that when you apply it, you have to work it already immediately, because it will stain your paper. Some are very forgiving, so you can take your time. So explore your paints and find out how each one works. Some also like paints with more granulation. Some prefer smoother paints. So it's all a matter of preference. So whatever your style is, explore them so that you can find out which one you like best. Okay, so when it comes to reflections, okay, I'm sure you observed it. So when you see your reflection in water, it's gonna be hazy, right? It's not gonna be as clear as the actual like object above it. All right, so that's how you do it. Okay, even if it's a still water, it's still not going to be as clear as the image on top. Okay, the image that shows on the water will be hazier and more muddled, and it will also be lighter. Okay, it won't have the same values. It will be not as bright, not as dark, and not as clear. Okay, so that's the basic thing to remember about painting reflections. The reflection won't be as bright, won't be as dark, and won't be as clear. So this one, the water below is not still, it has a slight movement, so the shadows later on will be, the reflection will be jagged. Okay, so this is the first layer. Okay, so I'm not going to stress out about the sky. All right, so I'm gonna now, while it's still wet, I'm gonna remove some paint. So clean your brush and then remove the excess water. And then now I'm gonna do some color lifting and remove some of the paint to show that those are the clouds. Okay, so just lift and wipe. So you can also use your paper towel for this if you want. So I like to use this technique for the clouds because it creates a soft effect, just like how clouds are. Okay, so this is just a pretty easy way of trying to mimic the clouds. Okay, so just lift, clean your brush every now and then on the water, because of course when you lift it you get the pigment, and if you want to get if you want the clouds to show, then it should be very pigmented. Okay, so I'm gonna keep lifting. See, it's this technique is very useful. So instead of like painting around the clouds earlier, I just painted all over and then just did some color lifting after, and it looks softer and it's much easier. Of course, you can also do the painting around if you prefer that method. That's fine. Okay, I'm just showing you this so you can also see that, oh, you can also do this, you know, and it also creates the effect of clouds. Sometimes it's hard to show clouds to make them soft, so this is one way that you can do it. Okay, color lifting. So we have a recent article out about some watercolor techniques, so please, if you have the time, if you want to read up on it, just go to our website, and it will be in the section about titled toolkits. Okay, so you'll find all sorts of articles there about how-tos and how to take care of your brushes, different brush strokes, so many things that you know, are in our minds when we are painting. Okay, so now I'm also going to do it here below while it's still wet. Okay, of course you can also do this color lifting with dried up paint, but it's going to be much harder, and also it also depends on the kind of paper that you have. So it's also good to try out different papers so that you can see which papers are more forgiving with the color lifting even when they're dry, and which ones are not. Okay, so get to know your materials, your tools. It's the best way. So if you're like me and you know, you're so used to your brushes, your tools, you even get to have favorites. So for example, this is one of my favorite brushes that I don't even remember what the number is because it's been erased. But I love it because I can do thinner lines to really thick lines with it. Okay, so continue with your color lifting. Okay, take your time. Well, if your paper allows it. Okay. So here I'm gonna be lifting in a softer way. I'm not gonna lift as much because remember, the reflection won't be as clear or as bright as the image on top. Okay, so keep that in mind. Okay, so if you have time and if you like to prepare stuff beforehand, you can pre-stretch your watercolor paper. Okay, the easiest way is just to use the masking tape, but if you want to keep it holding the paper down, even if you wet it so much, then you have to stretch it using like a, what do you call that, like a craft tape with a glue. I forgot, but yeah, so you wet your watercolor paper, you just dunk it in the water quickly like that, one even dunking in, and then you stretch it out on a board, preferably a wooden board that can absorb the water, and then use that the paper tape with the glue all around. So when it dries up, the paper that's wet will stretch, and the glue tape will hold it in place, and it will be so stretched that even if you use like thinner watercolor paper, it's gonna stay in place. Okay, so if you're like me and you don't really plan out and you don't stretch beforehand, I also have thicker paper in handy so that I can just use it without doing much stretching. Okay, so one thing I also have handy is my blow dryer, because I'm quite impatient, so I use a blow dryer to quicken the drying time. So you can do that if you're not worried about brush strokes or wet and wet effects that you want to slowly take time to work its way on your paper. So if it's just like one wash or one flat wash, and then you can use a blow dryer if you want to. Okay, so but if you have the time and if you like to keep the natural textures that you're afraid might, you know, move while you're using your blow dryer, then wait for it to dry naturally. Okay, meanwhile, I'll use a blow dryer, so excuse the noise. Okay, that's pretty dry. So if you notice, I also do like a little bit like that. So if there was some curling that happened, it's gonna help flatten it out. The heat really does wonders. Okay, but if you're not too worried about that, then don't stress out. Okay, so there you go. Okay, so I want it to be dry because I want the lines here to be pretty clear. Okay, so if it's wet and you apply the next layer of these figures, the silhouettes on wet, then the paint will disperse. It will, you know, go towards the blue, and you don't want that if you want to keep the lines clean. So to keep it clean, wait for the layer under it to fully dry. And like me, for example, if you want to cheat and make it quicker, then you can use a blow dryer. Okay, so if you have any questions, just ask me anytime. I keep checking the chat, so just ask away. All right, so now let's go to the dark. Okay, so normally people don't really buy the black in watercolor, but you can, of course, you can do that. You can use a black pigment that's already mixed, okay, or you can just mix using the colors that you have. All right, so in this case, this paint pan has raw umber and a Prussian blue. Okay, so I find that when I mix this nice dark brown raw umber with a dark blue, I get chromatic black. Okay, so it's not black, but I like it. I like the depth that it gives you. It's not a flat kind of black. So try to create your own blacks. You can use the 3 primary colors, red, yellow, and blue. If you mix them, you create a sort of brownish grayish black. It depends on the yellows, the blues, the reds you use. You can also use 2 colors opposite the color wheel, and they'll also create a brownish grayish black. So try it out. Try all the different mixtures, because you don't know what you'll end up with, and so you can also find which sort of black or gray or brown you like best. Okay, so in my case, I'm going to use raw umber and Prussian blue. Okay, I'm going to mix that. Okay, oops. Okay, so I'm going to prepare my palette. Okay, looking for a spot that's still free. Okay, so again, since I'm going to be using a lot of it, I like to prepare extra, so I'm going to use this again to get some water from my jar and then squirt it here on my mixing plate. Okay, you can also use a dropper, and you can also use a brush. I mean, you know, that's what I used to do. So this is just like a shortcut, especially if you're going to be making or painting a big work. So it's good to have this one, so that you don't have to keep redipping your brush and, you know, going back and forth. All right, so now let's see. Okay, I'll use raw umber. Okay, I'm gonna get a lot of that because we really want this to be very saturated, very dark, very deep. Okay, but if you apply it and then later on you find that it's not too dark for you, well, you can always do another layer. Okay, so don't stress out about it. Anyway, this is the photo is one dark silhouette, so you can totally just keep adding layers. You don't have to worry about how they look like, because they're just one flat shade. Okay, so this is a nice brown. I really love browns because they can help tone down colors. If you have colors that you want to apply and you find them too bright, then you can just add a little bit of brown and it tones down the color. Okay, now I'm going to add Prussian blue. Okay, so this is a nice dark blue. Okay, gotta get a lot of those. Just gonna prepare. You need to prepare a lot, and you see that the mixture is already turning this into this grayish color. Okay, I like this because it has like a slightly blue tinge. It's like the midnight sky, really. It's not black, but it's very, very dark and deep. Okay, I'm gonna add some more, and then I'm gonna swatch it in my scrap paper and see if I like it. Okay, here you go. Okay, so that's a nice deep blue. I'm gonna add more brown so it's more not too blue. I just want a slight blue. Okay, so see how useful having this paper is. It's really very helpful. You can keep working on your mixture before you put it down here, so you have all the time. Okay, so now let's see. Does this look better? Or do I like better? Okay, I think I like it. Alright, so here, if I bring it closely, it's a darker shade. It's not black. It's not this blue one. It's a more brown, but with a hint of blue. Alright, so now I'm gonna switch brushes because these figures are small. I don't want to, you know, mess up the form, because, you know, yoga form is so nice to look at, and I don't want it to be wobbly here on top, because the wobbling will be done at the bottom. Okay, so rinse out your brush if you're not going to use it. Don't leave it dunked in the jar. Okay, take care of your brushes so you don't have to keep buying. And now I'm gonna go for this one, the rigger brush. Okay, so it's longer than the usual round brush. That way you can, you know, create the lines easily. It holds pigment and water because it's longer. All right, so with your brush and your mixture. Okay, remember, the layer below has to be dry so that it doesn't spread. So this is probably not the darkest, so I'll be doing maybe 2 or 3 layers of this dark part. So let's start painting it over the details over. Yeah, it's pretty light, so I'm gonna do layers of this. Or you can already make your mixture darker if you want to. Okay, so take your time with the details. Okay, you want the edges to be clean and crisp, like how silhouettes are. Okay, let me bring that closer so you'll see closer. There you go. Okay, so when you're sketching for your watercolor, remember to draw lightly, and then you can even erase before you start painting if you feel like some of your sketches are too dark. So erase the lines. You know, that's the good thing about the kneaded eraser. You can just flatten it and dab it over the sketch, and it can mute it down. Okay, remove some of the sketch, but not completely, because after you paint over your sketch, you won't be able to erase it anymore. Okay, it's locked in. So if you don't want those lines showing through, then draw lightly, and at the same time erase those that you feel like are still too dark. Sometimes I forget to do that, and I'm just like, oops, I already painted over it and now I can't erase it. So I just modify my work. Maybe I cover that with, I don't know, a darker color if it works. If not, then it's not the end of the world. Sometimes it's also nice to see the sketch under peeking through. It also creates a, you know, an interesting effect, like you also see the process. Okay, I'm gonna start with the figures so that I have that in place before I do the weeds later on. Okay, so just trace over that, fill it in. Okay, take your time. See how much pigment the rigger brush holds. I don't really have to keep redipping. Okay, now I'm gonna move to the other leg. So don't stress out if it's not perfect, okay? As long as you keep working and keep trying out things, that's what's more important. I hope you join us for the whole of World Watercolor Month. We have so many things in store. Every day there will be something for you to see, so keep checking on the Painting Inspiration Daily group. And please also share your artworks, okay? Alright, so one figure is down. I'm gonna add just like hair details here and there. There you go. So, well, watercolor dries lighter. So what we see now won't exactly be the same shade later. So just wait for it to dry before checking to see if you like it, and then you can always add one or two more layers. So now I'm going to the next figure. Okay. So just the tip of the brush, because these are like fingers going up. Okay. Anyone there that practices yoga or enjoys yoga? So it's also a moment of reflection. It's a kind of meditation, right? That's what I like about yoga. It's, you can just relax and stretch your body, you know, give your mind a break, do some self-reflection, or even, you know, keep your mind empty. Okay, so I'm gonna be careful about the figure. So I try to be more sensitive, especially around the upper body area. I don't want it to look short or too weird. Okay, take your time. Fine details really take time and patience and a lot of brush control. So keep practicing, and it will become more natural and instinctive before you know it. Okay. There you go. All right, so the two figures are done. So now let's go and do the ground that they're standing on. Okay, so I'm just going to focus more on the outline and then do the weeds last. Sometimes if you don't see your sketch and you're not too sure, okay, don't stress. As long as you try to mimic what's on top to the one below, then you're fine. Okay, so let's be like the Impressionists. Let's not dwell on the tiny details and just take the overall look and effect and concentrate with that. Okay, and I'm gonna connect, make sure the legs connect so they don't look like they've been uprooted suddenly. Okay, so I don't really see too clearly really what I did here, so I'm just gonna wing it. Anyway, this is a mound of grass and little hills. Okay, and it's slowly coming together. Isn't it exciting when you see your work slowly coming together? Okay, so see how much of the pigment I've already used. That's why it's good to prepare more than you need, because you know you're gonna regret it if you run out. Especially if you mixed it from 2 or 3 colors, it's hard to get it exactly right the second time. Okay, so it's also nice when doing reflections. I also do this. It's like a Rorschach, so I can see better if it's real. I'm doing the same on the other side. My brain understands it better. So you can also do this if it makes it easier for you. Okay, even when I sketched earlier, this is what I did. And don't worry, since it's very dark, you can always add the details, extra details later on if you feel like they're not matching. You can always still fix it. Okay, so start with something simple like this for reflections, so that you can first understand the principle behind it before working on more difficult reflections. Okay, so just to recap, this is Prussian blue and raw umber. So just with these 2 colors, you're able to approximate a black. Okay, so explore your colors and see what those different blacks are and how you mix them. Okay, keep a color chart in your journal or your sketchbook. Okay, record it so that when next time you need it, it's there. It's listed down, and you don't have to keep remixing and trying to find it again. Okay, so that's a good habit to keep doing. Keeping a color journal, like a record of your mixes that you tried out, mixes that you liked. Okay, so it doesn't have to be perfect. If it's not exactly the same, don't stress out. Okay, so after this, I'm going to go to the bottom part and pray that my paint doesn't run out. Because there's still a lot to do. Okay. So I'll probably need to go over this again later, because this part shows through and I wanted to keep it really dark. But if you're happy with a not too dark one, then you don't have to. Okay, again, that's your preference. It's just I like it to be dark. I want to have that silhouette and shadow effect. Okay, so now I'm going to work on the reflection at the bottom. Okay, let's see. I'll move the camera down so you'll see. Okay, there you go. All right, so this one, because there are ripples in the water, the reflection also has this rippling effect. So you can just start with the sides and then fill it in. So I like to trace the sides so it's there, it's done before I fill it in. I find this much easier. You can also do work like from bottom from here to here. It's up to you. Okay, my way is this, and then I just go over it and fill it in. Okay, now time to fill in. Okay, make sure to connect it here so it's not suddenly cut off weirdly. So while your paint is still wet, you really can do so many things. Okay, you can still fix things, you can do color lifting. Okay, so if you want crisp, clean edges, then you have to do wet on dry. Okay, your surface must be dry. But if you want the mottled effect, the blooming that, you know, beautifully occurs in watercolor, then that's best done with wet on wet. Okay, so check out our website. We have all sorts of articles there about watercolor. Okay, how to start with watercolor, what are the materials that you need, and other useful information and tips. It's all there. So just head there and find which one you're looking for, and also ask us questions and tell us if you want us to write about something that we haven't covered yet. Okay, we appreciate the suggestions, so please do suggest, comment, let us know. I'll be replying to you myself, so looking forward to it. All right, now I'm gonna go to the next figure. Looks cool, I like it. Okay, even without the weeds, it looks fine already. Okay, so again, I'm gonna trace over the rippling. This is just like when you throw a pebble in a still water and it ripples beautifully. Okay, now I'm gonna fill it in. So see all the mixture that I mixed, I've already almost used up. So keep that in mind when you're preparing your mixtures. How much of it do you need? You know, and prepare more than what you think you need. Chances are you'll just end up, you know, finishing it just barely. Okay, you really don't want to run out in the middle and not be able to match the color if you want to keep the color even or the same. Okay, so I'm probably gonna do another layer. Okay, but not now. Okay, so now I'm gonna do the weeds. Okay, so you don't have to get this right exactly, just follow the motions. What you see here, you do the opposite down here. Okay, so I'm going to start on top. I'm going to change brushes so that I can create the thinner lines. So now I'm going to use the brushes that I got from our fine line set. I think I'll use this so that it can hold a lot of pigment and water, but still create the fine thin lines. Okay, so this is number 2 rigger. Right, so it's really fine. I love it. It's like a needle. Okay, now, okay, so just create the motions. Okay, so when the weed grows, it doesn't just grow in one, direction. So play around with it. Okay, make it look like it's really wild grass growing. Okay, have fun with it. You don't have to make it dark because you can still add another layer later. So I'm going to do the same. I'm just going to do some grass, and then I can add later more for the second layer. Okay, so take your time, have fun. Really, the best way to keep learning is to make sure you also have fun and enjoy the process, so that you'll keep at it. When it's no longer enjoyable for you, it's so hard to go on. So remember, don't be too hard on yourself. Okay, even if you feel like you didn't get what you were looking for, you still learned something, I'm sure. Okay, so there you go. And now I'm going to go to the one at the bottom. I'm going to just flip it. Okay, so you can totally do that. So I've actually run out of the mixture, see? Okay, I should have prepared more. So let's, I'm going to try to follow it. Okay, so keep working while I'm creating my mixture. So here's me crossing fingers that I'll be able to replicate it. Okay, so it's a good thing that it's pretty dark, and I will still be adding another layer later, so I can still make any corrections, color corrections that I need to do. Okay, so this is Prussian blue again with raw umber. So I really like the different browns. I have all sorts of browns, really. Raw umber, burnt umber, burnt sienna. Okay, they're all brown, but they have different shades of brown, and they're all useful depending on the color mixture that you're trying to do. Okay, so let's find out if this is approximately almost the same as what I mixed earlier. Okay, it is. It's just lighter, so I can add more pigment. Now I'm gonna swatch it again. Let's see. Okay, it's a little bit too blue, so I'm gonna add more umber. So it's like chemistry, really. You have to get the mix right. Okay, swatch it again. Okay, there you go. I've created an approximation. Okay, remember, don't leave your brushes dunked in. It's gonna ruin, it's gonna soften the glue that keeps the hair inside, and your brushes will be ruined. Okay, so now I'm gonna do the opposite, the reflection. Okay, like I said, don't stress if they're not exactly the same. As long as you get the general direction right, it's gonna look the same. Okay. See how beautiful the rigger brush is, the effect, the lines that it creates, long and thin and really beautiful. Okay, so just follow the general volume as well. Okay, just as long as you follow the direction, then that's okay. Okay, even if they're not exactly the same. If you're not bothered by it, then, you know, don't stress. Okay, so I'm gonna add here because later it was too dry because I was running out. So I also like to do this in layers because it makes, it gives it depth instead of just one layer of grass. Okay, so I like it. Looks about, seems to look the same, right? Okay, so there you go. I'm gonna wait for this to fully dry as well before I add the darker blue here. So in the reference photo, there's a darker blue here. That's probably the mountain, a mountain behind. Okay, so if it's already dry, then you can add another layer. Okay, but meanwhile, this is what we have. Okay, I'm gonna zoom out a bit. Right, there you go. So I like it. I hope you liked it too. It's not done at all, so I can use a dryer to make the drying faster. And then I'm still gonna add the mountain, so I'm gonna use a dryer so I can already add that. Okay. Okay, so while it's still kind of hot, I'm gonna stretch it out. It's so useful. Okay, so let's do the darker mountain. Okay, so I'm gonna use these two. So phthalo blue is great, looks great. I'm just going to swatch it to see if I like it for the mountain. Okay, I like it. It's a really nice deep blue. Okay, so I'm gonna apply it here. Okay, so remember, I'm not stressing because I'm still gonna add another layer. Okay, so just add the blue. I'm gonna make it a little bit uneven so that it looks like, you know, the mountain. Okay, and then I'm gonna feather the edges. Okay, clean my brush, and I'm just gonna go over the edge with a wet brush and soften the edges. Okay, so you can do that. Just go over the edges with a clean brush and soften it. Like this. Okay, so that's the way to soften your edges if you don't want it to be hard edge. So like in the reference, the mountain is far away, so it won't have a sharp, clean outline. And then I'm going to do below, I'm going to dilute the paint a bit because remember, the reflection won't be the same intensity. Oh, thank you. The creative process is really interesting, right? I also love to watch how others create because each one of us, we have our own process. It's really fascinating. Okay, and then I'm gonna also, again, since the mountain is far away, I'm gonna soften the edge, feather it, just clean your brush, wet it, and just go over the edges. Okay, I'm actually going to make this a bit higher. This is a bit low. Okay. Yes, please do. Please try it. And then please share your works. I really love it when I see other people's version of what I did, because, you know, it's interesting how things differ and come out for each one of us. So this is pretty easy. I mean, when you sketch, you know, it's gonna take some time because of all the you know, the silhouette of the body and stuff like that. But once you have that down and you start this, it's pretty easy because it's just really a very dark silhouette and very dark shadow. So this is a more enjoyable and easy water reflection study. Okay, so now I have that mountain down. It really added an interesting depth to it, right? Now it looks more solid, more 3D. Okay, so now I'm gonna go over this again, because since I mixed this anyway, okay? And then I probably let's check to see later how it looks like before deciding if I'm gonna add another. Okay, so with watercolor, how would you know if you're doing too many layers already? I really learned this the hard way in school. When your paper starts to look shiny after all the layers, it means you've done too much already. Okay, so try to lessen it. Don't worry, that's part of the process. You know, sometimes you just have fun piling on the layers, seeing the effects. You also have to go through that because it's fun. It's fun to layer. So, but if you don't want to end up with always a painting with too many layers, just observe, and if it starts to look shiny, you know, it finishes with a shiny sheen, then it means there's too many layers already. Okay, so I'm going to start here first, just to have this dark down. Okay, so that's why I like to mix my own blacks. because it doesn't give you a flat matte black. It gives you a more interesting, more black with more character. So sometimes you might like to use a more purplish black or a more grayish black, or whatever black you get to mix that you prefer to use. So have fun and explore. Just try to mix your different primaries. So some primaries have two kinds. You have the cool and the warm primary. So for example, in this palette, this is the cool yellow, the warm yellow. Okay, so all the primaries have a cool and warm version. So explore how, when you mix cool ones together or warm ones together, what you get. Okay, or what if you mix them up, what do you get? Okay, and then record them down and then see which one you like best, or which one you like to use for a specific painting. Okay, and then now I'm gonna go over the people again, make them darker, solid outline. Oops. So there will be oops moments. Don't worry. It's much harder if it's a dark color because well, it's gonna stain, but you can still lift that off. So if you make a mistake somewhere and you want to remove that while it's still wet, it's the best time to do it. Rinse your brush and use a damp brush to lift off the color, like what we did with the clouds, but now it's for correcting. So the color lifting can be done for corrections and for effects. So have fun with it. I like to use color lifting when I paint trees, because I like the effect of softening some parts to show that, you know, there's some light trying to shine through. Okay, so now it's darker. I love it. Okay, so usually us artists, we really, you know, we judge ourselves too early on. Our works are still, you know, works in progress, and we're already like, oh no, I don't like where this is going. But you know, wait for you to finish your own work before you make your final judgment, because a work in progress is of course in progress. So there's still things that you want to do and you want to add, and it's gonna make such a big difference. Like this, just adding another layer already makes it look great, because early on it was like thinned out. Okay, so remember, start with the lightest colors, lightest mixtures when you're layering, and then layer up. You end with the darker or darkest mixtures. Okay, now I'm gonna go down here to the reflection. Okay, so today's prompt is reflection, and this is what I chose. I'm also interested to see how you interpret the prompt reflection. So if you've got your ideas, what you'd like to paint when you think of the word reflection, I'd be so interested to see it. So please share it as well in the group, because you know, words have different meanings for different people, and it's nice to see how our minds are different, how we think of things differently. So I hope you join us for the rest of the July as well with this watercolor challenge, World Watercolor Month. Keep checking every day, because we'll be sharing activities, videos, lives from other artists as well. So if you have time, please do join us every day. We'd really appreciate it. And please do share your works. We really love seeing your own works. Okay, so I'm probably gonna do the grass later on. I'm just going to finish this, but you get the idea. Okay, so it also looks great when you layer the grass. You just don't do it in one passing. Okay, wait for the first layer to dry and then add another one later, so it creates a more depth. It gives the suggestion that, you know, there's really grass growing, not just in one line, but for the whole hill. Okay, so for now, this is it. Okay, I hope you love it. And I hope you join us next time. Tomorrow we'll have yes, I know, right? It's much easier to paint during the daylight, of course. I also prefer it. Artificial light, really, you're not sure what the colors you're getting. Okay, so please try this out. I'm excited to see what you end up with and what your own interpretation is of the reference photo. So this reference photo, I shared it in the event. Okay, it's there. If you go to the event invite, the photo is there, and you can just use it if you want to use the same photo. Well, you can also try another kind of reflection that you prefer if you want, and then share to us. Looking forward to seeing your version. Okay, so I'm still gonna add grass, but you get the idea. I hope you learned something today. I hope you like this, and I'll flip the camera so you're not talking to. Okay, so this is me. Okay, I'm gonna zoom out so you see my. All right, so I just did it this big, not too big, okay, not too small, because it's also gonna be much harder if it's too small. So I like this size, it's very workable. So I hope you enjoyed this how to paint reflection on water using watercolor. So, and I also used this palette from Zen Art. We call this our espresso palette because it's like a good cup of espresso. It packs a punch, 12 beautiful colors in one tiny nice package. It can literally fit in your pocket. Okay, so thank you for joining today, and I'll see you next time. Bye.